Welcome back to Eurosport. Welcome back to Estoril, and having technical problems here on site apparently. So although we can still see pictures of the race here, of the GT race that's continuing in progress, I'm afraid somehow we can't get them to you. So we'll be showing you now the highlights of the first race in the Euro STC. And David Leslie, championship up for grabs here, and the point situation is fairly clear. Fabrizio Giovanardi, the #1 Alpha driver, the reigning champion, who won, despite your best efforts for Honda last year at the final race of last year's Euro STC, he leads the points. And he leads by how many? Oh, I haven't turned your mic on. By 13, 16 from, yeah.
16 points.
16 from it. It's starting to get a little bit wild in here. 16 points from Gabriele Tarquini and Nicola Larini, who are in a Honda and Alfa Romeo respectively. Okay, so let's tell you what the teams are doing to try and help their drivers. Honda drafted in last time James Thompson to try and help Gabriele Tarquini at Jarama. Thompson and the regular second driver Fabrice Valfish in the two other Honda Accords supporting Gabriele Tarquini. Nordor to Alfa Romeo. Last time in Jarama they drafted in Felipe Massa, the Formula 3000 European champion, who is now also got himself a Formula 1 drive. He was very good indeed, very impressive in terms of speed, and he has been joined this weekend in the #3 car by the man who has pole, Ivan Muller, ex-British touring car, ex-German touring car, ex-ice racing, well, continuing ice racing driver. So now Muller has taken the drive that's normally Romana Bernardoni. She's been moved over into super production to help the Nordauto team develop Alfa's 147, but chiefly to get her out of the way to put a fast driver in. And Muller has proved not only to be a fast learner, having only done 10 laps in the rain before he came here to this track that he has not ever raced on, I don't think, and put the car on pole. So he's on pole, Tarquini alongside. Row 2 of the grid is Giovanardi and Larini, who have been long-time championship leaders. Larini is now tied with Tarquini. Row 3 of the grid, we have James Thompson in the second, and basically only really support Honda, because I don't think Fabrice Valfish is going to be able to cut it here, although Felipe Massa is on that row as well. So Larini, second place on the grid, nearly where he wants to be, but with 1 Alfa in front and 3 right behind him. It's going to be tough.
It's going to be a very hard time indeed. He really is out there on his own, just surrounded by Alfa Romeos. But Gabriele is a fighter, we know that. We've watched him many years in Britain in the Race Touring Car Championship. He hasn't given up. He unfortunately had lost a few races at the very beginning of the season, which put him a long way behind. And he has fought very hard the second half of the season, scoring many more points than anybody else. But unfortunately trying to clamber back that number of points he lost by having 3 non-finishes in the first 3 meetings, then it's made life very difficult for him. Giovanardi, on the other hand, because of the way the points work, getting 40 for first, 35 for second, 32 for third, and 30 for fourth, and so on down like that, you're getting an awful lot of points for even just a finish. Therefore, you know, Giovanardi simply has to keep on going and just finishing, and if he can keep good finishes, then he will win the championship without having to do too much and actually winning a race. Tarquini, on the other hand, really does need to win these races. Now then, what he didn't expect was to have Muller in the Alfa Romeo. We can see sitting on pole position. I'm not sure why, but pole position is actually on the wrong side of the circuit, because the first corner turns right, but he's sitting on the left-hand side of the circuit. Admittedly, it looks like the drier line because the circuit isn't 100% dry at the moment, but even so, I would have thought the rules and regulations would have had the pole position like every other circuit in the country or in the world on the right-hand side, or going into the first corner on the inside, shall I
wonder if they gave him a choice. I wonder if he thought, I'll take the dry line, because maybe when they offered him the choice it was considerably wetter. Anyway, away they go. Muller on pole, Tarquini alongside. Makes a good start despite that being on the damp side of the circuit, but we've seen that the Honda is not the outright speed machine that it was last time at Jarama. It looks as though the Alphas, as well as being darn strong, as the 2 Hondas of Thompson and Valfish get eased out on the outside by Felipe Massa and are held up. Tarquini is in second with, I think, Giovanardi and Larini in that order. One of the Conrero cars is backwards. That's the #9 car of Lancialotti. No, can't remember. One of the Conrero Alpine is irrelevant, doesn't matter. But Tarquini in second place and making early inroads into Ivan Muller, desperate to try and pass him on this first lap as Matt Neal goes through. He's been edged away a couple of places away from the grid as well. He's a little bit further down than he'd like to be in the Nissan, but Tarquini trying to pass. Now let's see if he can get him down into this corner. He's coming down the inside of Ivan Muller. No, it's very close indeed. Tarquini, David, is desperate to make that early move.
It would help tremendous if he can get to the front. If he gets to the front, he controls the race. At this moment in time, he's really boxed in with these Alfa Romeos. That's the position he certainly didn't want to be in. That was the reason of having some other people to help him. But as you can see in the back of the picture, one of those Hondas was disappearing off across the grass. And we believe that one to be Fabrice Valfish.
Yeah, Valfish battling with one of the two Swedish-driven Volvos that have joined the series this weekend. The Swedish Championship is over, and that was Jens Erdmann in his Volvo. They're both going up the hill, down the hill, I can't remember, on the grass anyway, on the outside out of that Michael Schumacher turn. I particularly remember it as the one where he sold Damon Hill a dummy in a Grand Prix several years ago, sailed down the inside and then cleared off to win, much to Hill's disappointment and chagrin. But at the end of lap one then, it is Ivan Muller stretching his legs a little on the straight, where at the end the Honda will be back with him, I think. But in third and fourth places, Giovanardi and Larini. So Giovanardi, Larini and Tarquini, second, third and fourth, very close indeed. But as you said, David, in the point scoring, very little difference between first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, the points go down to 20th place or something, so there's an awful lot of points to be scored, but not too many difference between finishing, say, fourth and fifth, or third and fifth, or something like that. So at the moment, Ivan Muller defending very well indeed, and he's certainly right in the middle. His top gear Ted line right through the middle of all the corners to guard the inside and the outside. Tarquini being a little bit more extravagant with the cornering lines, but of course he does have the added problem of Giovanardi right behind him in third spot, because if Tarquini really commits himself to a move and it doesn't quite happen, boom, bye-bye Giovanardi, and then probably Larini will zoom by him in one fell swoop. So Tarquini will have to be very tactical, as we know he can be, and he must surely be ruining those two clashes at the opening two races that cost him one finish in both of those opening meetings of the season.
I think it was that Italian temperament at the very beginning of the season that has put him in this position now where he is, where he's fighting desperately to try and get the lead and score the maximum points, to try and pull back those points he lost at the beginning to Giovanardi. The Italians in the Alfa Romeo was just going out there and scoring constantly right from the word go, right from the very beginning of the season. But unfortunately, Tarquini looks as though he's well boxed in here. He's got Giovanardi right behind him. On that basis, second place is 35 points and third place will be 32 points. There's only 3 points of difference, remembering he's got 16 points to catch up in order to try and win the championship as Gabriele Tarquini. So to score only 3 more where they are on only this second lap of the race, then he needs slightly more than that.
And James Thompson, as you can see now, behind Felipe Massa, and that pair of cars dropping away from this lead quartet. So James unable now, possibly as a result of a little touch or two in the first corner. I mean, these cars are not built like brick outhouses generally. Even the Alfas and the Audis are, all right, fair enough, but the Alfas and the Hondas are really speed machines, and perhaps just a tiny little suspension derangement, just a tap on the wheel or something that's knocked the toe or the track out, might be enough to drop him off the back. Whatever, he's not going to be able to get in there, mix it with Giovanardi and Larini and take even 1 or 2 points off them unless something happens. Tarquini here again on his own, battling with the Alfas, and as you say, a couple of points here or there is not enough. He doesn't have to necessarily win, he does have to try and pull out a big advantage over Giovanardi and Larini, and right now that looks a little bit tough. Well, on the email, James O'Donoghue, among many other people actually, wants to know, David, as this is the last hurrah this weekend of Super Touring, what on earth is happening? We've got Super Touring and Super Production, all sorts of manufacturers angling for various different either Super Production rules or Super Touring rules, or the Euro Super 2000 regulation package that was thought up, and all sorts of different combinations. And in short, we don't know, do we? Everybody's got a different story, but by next week, by this time, if only we were here this time next week, we might be able to tell everybody.
Well, what's happened basically is the Super 2000 rules have been accepted by the FIA and agreed, but unfortunately there's still a bit of a split in some of the manufacturers. So what they're trying to do now is bring those manufacturers together, so there will be a bit of dilution of the Super 2000 rules to try and make it a little bit cheaper and make life a little bit easier. So they're trying to find a little bit of middle ground to bring the super production and super touring cars closer together in order to have only one race instead of two races and having a very big grid. But during this following week, meetings on 4 out of 5 days, so as you say, next week we'll know the answers.
We should do. We'll know what happens in this race in just a minute. Back at Estoril, the Super Touring race continues, and in second place, Gabriele Tarquini. Well, a lot of work to do. We were talking a moment or two earlier about the changes to the regulations, which almost all the manufacturers seem to want, because we're losing Super Touring as this 2-litre concept at the end of this season, effectively after the final race here in Estoril, although it may still continue as the choice in some of the smaller national categories. British Touring Car Championship have got a sort of semi-super touring kind of slightly a bit super production set of rules, and there are various other championships in Europe that have various other denominations of rules. Everybody, the manufacturers who are involved, who might become involved, or who have been involved in the past, and are sort of maybe like Honda looking to a model that's coming in a couple of years about becoming re-involved, all have got a little iron in the fire, and they've all got a little bit of work to do with regard to that. And as David Leslie was saying, in the next week after Estoril, there are 4 days solid of FIA manufacturers, committees and meetings of one sort or another, culminating hopefully in Friday when the Touring Car Committee meets, the FIA Touring Car Committee chaired by Jonathan Ashman. When that meets, hopefully there will be, from the Technical Proposals Group, a proposal ratified by the manufacturers and therefore decided at the end of the week. But we will have to wait and see. However, David, you have to say, some people have been saying, super production, 12 cars on the grid here from 5 different manufacturers, covered by less than 0.6 of a second. Do you actually need to mess with the formula?
It depends what you think. It is actually very close. It is working very well. But at the moment in time, we've got this race, Super Touring race on here, and Gabriele is trying ever so hard. We're now on the last lap, and what we haven't seen, what we haven't noticed, that we know about, is the 2 other Hondas, the Valfish car and the Thompson car, have been in the pits to have a little bit of work done on them, and they've now gone back out 2 laps down, as has this red car we see in front at the moment, the Matt Neal Nissan. So all those 3 cars are last in this race at the moment, which with the rules we have over here in the European Touring Car Championship, if you are last in the first race, you will start in pole position for the second race. Honda, I think, having a tactical move here, and oh, that was a bit more than a tactical move. That was Gabriele being a little bit forceful, thinking if I give him a little bit of a knock, he might knock him wide enough for me to get past, but obviously not. Muller obviously used to that in the British Touring cars and able to hang on, but what we did see there was a very big dent in the front of the Honda. So coming around the very last corner now, there's a big dent in the front of the Honda. Now, while this race was earlier this morning, and there's lots of time between then and the second race, there is only 15 minutes to work on the cars. The cars are kept in park firmly, you're not allowed to work on them, not allowed to touch them. So all that damage to the front of Gabriele's car that we've seen a minute ago, they've only got 15 minutes in which to repair it. Now that could cause them 1 or 2 problems.
Certainly could, because high speed here on the straight does demand good aerodynamics. Monica Sips, though, in the green jacket, who is the Nord Auto team boss, delighted with that. Ivan Muller wins. Not so much delighted that it's Muller that wins, although it's always nice to have a race for a win for an Alfa Romeo driver, but delighted that he managed to hold off Gabriele, and so Gabriele does not get 40 points and close up even more on Fabrizio Giovanardi, who was 3rd, and pull away even more from Nicola Larini, who was 4th, but that they have limited the damage a little bit. And there is damage on the front of Tarquini's car, and David, although the bonnet was knocked down there by that impact, not entirely sure it will have done any cooling system damage, but I mean, you've driven those cars. Could it have an effect in the long term in the final race? Bearing in mind they're starting at the back and in a lot of traffic for a lot of the race.
I think that the damage would be superficial there at the moment. The radiators are much lower down, so it's not a case of damaged radiators, etc. But you need to have the car intact for the second race. And if you have a little bit of door banging, you don't want something that can come loose very quickly. And if you've got damage after the first race, then it depends how securely you can fix that in that 15 minutes to make sure that if you have some damage to the second race, all of a sudden the bonnet doesn't fly up and hit the windscreen or anything stupid like that. So it'll just be as much hard work as possible to get that going. So there we see the result. Ivan Muller first, Gabriele Tarquini second, Giovanardi hanging on in third place to restrict the amount of damage done. Another two Alphas coming up, Larini and Massa, Philippe Massa in fifth place, with Colgiaggio in sixth because of the demise of the Hondas having been brought into the pits.
But bizarre that Colgiaggio's not fifth. Why on earth, especially having seen, because they brought the Yasport Honda pair in on lap 8 or something of a 12-lap race. The Nord Auto people could not have failed to have seen that. They're just beside them, not exactly beside them, but only 4 or 5 garages away. Why on earth did they leave Felipe Massa out there? He would have been much better off at the front, battling with the two Hondas that are starting on the front row, than starting right in front of Larini and Tarquini and potentially actually being a problem for them to get by.
Well, what Honda have done have been very good. I mean, they realise that they have very much an uphill struggle to try and win this championship, so they've taken their two cars out of the first race. They will start on the front row of the second race. They will be able to control that. So when the Alphas get through to the front, they've then come across two Hondas, and I think they'll find it very difficult to pass those two cars. In the meantime, allowing Gabriele as much time as possible to get up there. If Gabriele gets there first, of course, he will be let straight through, and then you'll have this roadblock right behind him to keep back as the Alphas as much as possible.
Yeah, they won't be in line astern, they'll be side by side. They'll take the door handles together, won't they? They shall not pass. And that's obviously what Gabriele needs to do. But the way that the points are now, Gabriele Tarquini second place, and he's 13 now behind Fabrizio Giovanardi. So Giovanardi, who starts behind him on the grid, must finish 5th or better to win this championship if Tarquini wins. So it's not all done.
Yvon, it certainly seems as though you've done the job that Alfa have brought you in for.
Yeah, it's good because I'm finished in front of Gabriele, so he couldn't win, so a bit less points. He's not finished. I think the team has won the mark, the championship. Yeah, but will be exciting for the second race.
Thank you, Yvon.
Thank you.
Welcome back live to Estoril for the deciding race in the European Super Touring Championship, and David jocks the strapping down there on the grid. That's a sight very warm to your heart, I'm sure.
Yes, it is indeed. The Scottish team Pro Motorsport from Glasgow, they got their kilts from Douglas Anderson Dumfries, who's the person who supplies kilts not only to this team here but also to David Coulthard in Formula 1, Alan McNeeson, Formula 1 with Toyota, and also Dario Franchitti, the Italian-Scotsman who's racing in IndyCar in America. So very famous, and as you see, a number of the kilts looking extremely smart on that grid there.
And I'm reliably informed, nothing worn under the kilts at all. It's all in perfect working order. Thank you very much indeed. And as you saw there, Sandro Sardelli giving the V sign, the Winston Churchill style V sign in the car, because in the confusion and distractions of our highlights of the first race, we did neglect to mention that Sardelli did enough in race 1 to guarantee that he is the amateur driver champion in the Euro Super Touring Car Championship. So Sandro Sardelli has clinched the title from Gianluca Di Lorenzi, despite Gianluca Di Lorenzi's late run of scintillating form that really kicked off with double wins at the A1 ring. He's barely failed to win since, but Sardelli has clinched the championship. Meanwhile, we need to catch up with Gabriele Tarquini.
Gabriele, there's just one race to go now. The start in this race really is going to be crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sure that my chance to win the championship is quite over, but I think it's a race, so everything can happen to me and also to some other drivers. I want to finish the race, I want to attack until the end of the race.
Thank you, Gabriele.
Well, David, a very downbeat Gabriele Tarquini saying that he thinks the championship is over. Having seen what happened in race 1, if it was a normal grid start with everything in qualifying order, then I would agree with him. However, as he says, anything can happen here, and with his two teammates in front controlling the pace of the race and hopefully bunching people up, I really want to see Gabriele Tarquini giving it everything.
Yvon, just before the race, what does a driver think about? What is going through your mind just before you race?
Well,
I suppose that depends of the driver. For my part, I just try to stay as much relaxed I can and to slow down the rhythm of the hard and to be not nervous, because if you are nervous you do some mistake, but sometimes we can't control. It depends.
Thank you, Yvon.
So Ivan yesterday, Yvonne this afternoon, Yvonne Muller, and Ian Wells reckoning on the email that Yvonne Muller, one of the best talents not to make it into F1. How do we rate him, David? I think we rate him very highly indeed. As a touring car driver, he doesn't have too many peers, does he?
No, he doesn't. He's very, very good indeed. You've got to try and remember that during the winter he goes off and does ice racing, and he is one of those sort of uncatchable people in the ice racing world, having won the Andros Trophy for the last 4 years.
Well, Giovinazzi, the championship leader by 13 from Gabriele Tarquini. If Tarquini wins it, though, he needs to finish top 5.
Fabrizio, it was raining earlier, but the track is drying out. Can you tell me what decision you've made about your tyres?
Yes, I think everybody start with slick tires because 90% of the circuit is dry. I think the choice is right.
And the start will be important again in this race where you could win the championship.
Yeah, for me it's important. Don't do through the accident. I hope to finish the first lap and then I will think about the championship.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
Well, as we've mentioned, the two cars on the front row of the grid are James Thompson and Fabrice Valfish in that order. Thompson on pole, Valfish in second, because the Yas team brought them into the pits and allowed them to finish last by checking things and generally lifting bonnets and closing them a bit. Matt Neal also did much the same thing. I haven't had a chance to talk to Matt. I don't believe he had a problem. I believe they came in the hope of perhaps winning a race at the last chance this weekend. There you can see the two white cars, the Hondas on the front of the grid. Of course, the race 1 winners, it's a reverse grid, so the race 1 winner, Yvonne Muller, right at the back, apart from the 2 or 3 cars that didn't finish and are still running, and in front of him are the guys who were right behind him. So it's a reversed order grid. And Giovinazzi, basically, David, Giovinazzi needs to stick right behind this camera car, or right with the camera car of Tarquini. As long as Tarquini's not too far away, Giovinazzi's safe. But as he says, fighting your way through the traffic, as Tarquini will undoubtedly do, and Giovinazzi will have to go with him if he does that, always raises the possibility of accidental contact with some of the other drivers, and that could really drastically change the championship.
Yes, it could. The championship isn't fully tied up altogether. Giovinazzi does have to finish in the top 5 if Gabriele Tarquini wins this race. The Yas team have done a good job of trying to make sure that happens by having their 2 support cars on the front row of this grid to be able to try and control it from the front. So it's not all over, and as Giovinazzi said, he very much has to keep out of trouble. And this, the largest grid we've had all year, with some 24 cars starting this race, 25 cars, because one of them is going to start from the pit lane, one of the Swedish Nissans there. So it's going to be very difficult. These cars have been getting quicker and quicker all year long, and we do know that the Hondas and the Alfa Romeos are in a class of their own and are very much the quickest cars out there. But they do have a lot of other cars, a lot of new cars, new Nissans from Sweden, Opel, Volvos from Sweden, and even another Audi from Sweden to try and contend with. These people, I'm sure, will try and make their life as difficult as possible. Everyone's wanted to be a winner.
Exactly right, and there is nothing that says that the drivers who start further up in this second race have to let the front runners through. There's absolutely nothing there. If you want to get by, you have to do a lot of passing. As you said, David, compared to earlier in the season where there was 15 or 16 cars, there is a lot more passing to be done. And some of these guys here, the reigning Swedish touring car champion, and a lot of the top Swedish touring car drivers here as well, are going to be a lot tougher to pass than some of the less experienced drivers, to be fair to them, that we've had in the midfield during the season. One of the advantages perhaps here is that Sardelli has tied up the championship, so there's not necessarily going to be a huge battle between him and Gianluca De Lorenzi. However, that's still going to happen. So Thompson and Valfish on the front row of the grid then, the 2 Yas Sport Hondas, and I fancy James Thompson for victory in this one. Matt Neal in 3rd place, I fancy him for podium position as well, although Alberto Raidelli in the second of the Audis, or the further up the grid of the Audis, should start well. The 2 Conrero Alphas shouldn't provide too much of a problem. Max Gustafsson in the Crawford Nissan should be working his way further up the order, I think, by race 2. Nelson Clemente, late addition to the field, the Portuguese driver, and there's the other Crawford Nissan as well. And then the 2 Swedish Volvos, Jens Erdman and Jan Flash Nilsson. Erdman went off, as we saw earlier in the first race, and took some while to recover. Colciage should be able to barge his way through the field. Felipe Massa will run a sweeper for Larini and Giovanardi, because I think Larini could still win this if it all goes his way. Tarquini behind them, and with Ivan Muller right alongside him on that back row of the grid in front of Heinrich Semanchik. So again for Tarquini, it's all to do and a sea of red, and all his mates are up at the front. Well, that's probably the most useful place they can be for him, but it does still mean that to win this championship, Gabriele Tarquini has to do pretty much everything himself. We saw Monica Sips there on the brink of a second consecutive European Super Touring title with Giovanardi. Last race will decide it. Fabrizio Giovanardi brings the car onto the grid at the tail of the field. Alongside him is Gabriele Tarquini. Right in front, Nicola Larini. Pole position, James Thompson. Outside front row on the left of picture. Drivers right on the track is Fabrice Valfish. So Thompson again with the drier left-hand side of the track, the right-hand side of the picture. You can see it's definitely a matte surface there compared to the slightly shiny surface as we see it from drivers right there with Giovanardi. So Thompson should have the lead into the first corner, but I fancy Matt Neal to go inside or around the outside of Fabrice Valfish as the lights go to green. And look at the Audi come away from the third row of the grid. That's Johansson, the Swede. He's trying to pull alongside Matt Neal as he's nearly alongside Matt Neal, but Neal gets into third. Good start by Fabrice Valfish, probably his best and most important start of the year. Keeps Matt Neal off there because Valfish might, you never know, might end up with a win here. But Ivan Muller was inside. Gabriele Tarquini is one of the Volvos got knocked off, and I think that'll be Jan Nielsen, who was the higher placed of them and therefore further back on the grid. Giovanardi is in the middle of the BMWs and the multicoloured cars. He and Larini go through, but Tarquini is being boxed in. Tarquini boxed in. He's got Muller in front of him. Felipe Massa is in front of him as well. And Tarquini really in trouble now. Giovanardi has gone, so too has Larini, and Gabriele on the back foot. He was starting behind them anyway, but he had a lot of trouble trying to find his way safely through the first corner. And here is Tarquini. He's on the dirt there as he scrabbles around the outside of somebody. Now Gabriele is a fighter, no doubt about it, David, and that was probably who he scrabbled around the outside of the BMW there. Don't know if that was Zadra or Eric K-Roll, doesn't matter. He's safely through and no damage, it seems, to Tarquini. Giovanardi now behind one of the Nissans. Is that Sardelli? I think it might be. So Giovanardi is making practice. Tarquini, are we seeing him on his own and slowing? No, please don't say he's slowing. No, he's not. He's already jumped ahead of that little group, and that, I think, is Felipe Massa behind him. Battle goes on behind. We don't care about that. Let's get back to where Giovanardi and Tarquini are, because Matt Neal's in second place behind James Thompson. He has got past Fabrice Valfish. No, he hasn't. Thompson's made a mistake. Valfish leads, Neal second, and Thompson in third place, Johansson in fourth. Ooh, something wrong with the camera angle there, I think. We've gone on to super widescreen effect. Here we are back with Fabrice Valfish leading lap one. Matt Neal in second place and all over the back of him, David. That's a good chance for Matt now to try and make a move and take the win. As further back, Giovanardi is 10th and Tarquini 13th.
Yes, they're really mixed up in this first lap. It always happens that when they're setting off in the back, they pass a lot of cars during the first lap. And the first lap gets very, very hectic indeed. We've seen that with all of a sudden Tarquini moving around a little bit, and obviously that was to come together with number 16, the K-Royal BMW. It ended up in the barrier with a very bent looking wheel. As we can see, the AS Motorsport car with Tarquini still going at a pace and looking very good. Right up there, but still boxed in with a pile of Alfa Romeos around him, and they're really making life difficult. Look at that, two abreast.
Muller right behind him.
Go anywhere.
Muller's right behind him. That's Larini immediately in front, Giovanardi in front, and that's Gustafsson, in fact, in the Crawford Nissan right in front, the 27 car. There he is. And Tarquini, oh, Muller's coming down the inside, you see now. That's exactly what he didn't need. Larini and Giovanardi are going to do everything they can to keep him at bay. Larini can't let him through because Larini still has title aspirations if Giovanardi gets taken off there. Larini under pressure from Tarquini, makes a mistake. Tarquini goes through. That's it, done for Larini. Tarquini will not give that. Oh, unbelievable. Lurini sat there with the tank-like Alpha and allowed Tarquini to go across his nose. The championship is over for Tarquini. It will be an Alfa Romeo driver that wins it, but will it be Giovanardi or will it be Lurini? Tarquini's pictures show that he's bailing out of the car, and that is a dreadful disappointment for him. Well, he tried to cut back in front of Lurini, and to be fair, down there, under-braking into that little hairpin, David, Lurini did not punt him off. He didn't give him any room, but he did not punt him off.
Lurini had nowhere to go. He was sitting on the edge of the circuit, and as you said, it looked as though Tarquini tried to turn in front of him. Lurini just sat there on the edge of the circuit, and Gabrielli managed to wrap himself around the front of the Alfa. That's very reminiscent of the first three races at the beginning of this year, when Gabrielli didn't finish the first few races.
Well, I did say when we were talking at lunchtime that my feeling was that Gabrielli would take every half opportunity that offered itself in traffic, because he had to win the race. That was all there was to it. If he didn't make the move, he was unlikely to win the race, and if it went wrong, he wouldn't win the race. He had nothing to lose. It was absolutely win or bust for Gabrielli, and unfortunately the Italian has not been able to fight it through to the end. However, the championship is still open, undecided, and Nicola Lurini, who we ride on board with now, is the man who must and who can, because I don't believe that Nord Auto will, even in this very final race of the year, have applied team orders, as Matt Neal leads, incidentally, from James Thompson. Fabrice Valfish in the pits with the bonnet up, and clearly some engine problem. Matt Neal leads, James Thompson second, Johansson third, as we see Colciaggio going past Valley in the Alfa, in the BMW rather. Giovanardi now is in 8th place, Lurini in 9th. And again, to finish my thought, finish my sentence, I don't think that Nord Auto will say to Lurini, you must stay behind Tarquini, because both drivers can still win the race, and still win the championship. So for Lurini, it's everything now in his court. He doesn't have to worry about Tarquini. He doesn't have to keep his nose clean with regards to preserving Giovanardi as a teammate. Now it's no holds barred. He's got to pass Giovanardi, and he ought to do it quickly too.
I think if he's going to win the championship, he needs to do more than pass Giovanardi. He needs Giovanardi not to finish, in actual fact, because if Giovanardi finishes the position he's in now without passing another car, he will win the championship, and Lurini can't do anything about it. Lurini would need to win this race with Giovanardi a long way down, or preferably not to finish at all, if Lurini was going to manage to take the championship away. So I'm sure Giovanardi knows that, and he'll be sitting there thinking, don't make any mistakes, don't take any risks, don't do what Gabriele Tarquini did, and just go out there and pick up the places nice and easy. By now you'd have expected him to pass that Nissan that's in front of him, one of the Swedish Crawford Nissans, but he's sat there now for well over half a lap without actually making the move.
Well, Gustafsson's no slouch, and he is defending very hard, and of course, you know, we're not talking about how much a back mark is holding up the leader. This is a battle for 7th place, and points, and all. He hasn't come all the way from Sweden just to be making the grid look attractive. You know, he's got sponsors who have paid money to see him be there, and he wants to do the very best he can, particularly because he may be thinking about coming into this championship with some other kind of car next year, and being a Swede, and the fact that we know that we've already seen testing pictures of a Volvo, there may be a Volvo around, and what better way to come and, you know, post your intentions to Volvo than by doing very well here against the top-line European opposition. The Volvo importer in Sweden may well be, or importer in Sweden, what I'm talking about, Volvo Sweden may well be interested in running some cars. Who knows, if they, for instance, have a car for whatever rules we end up with. Fabrice Valfish in the pits, we've told you about that earlier on, walking away from his car, but Giovanardi now making a move as the Nissan got held up behind the BMW of Valley, and Stefano Valley from San Marino stepping in at the last minute into that car, because Moreno Soli, who normally drives it, has got compression of the spine. He's injured himself, and so he can't drive the car. Now, this is the battle for the lead, though. That's British touring car days all over again. David, now you should put yourself in the middle of this. Matt Neal, Britain's top privateer, against James Honda Thompson. James Thompson in the Honda he drove in last year's touring car championship. These two know each other very well, and it's a British battle for the win. Hooray.
It is. They're doing very well out there. They were on the front row of the grid. They've really driven away from everybody now. They are some 6 seconds ahead of the third person, which is an Audi. And approximately 12 seconds ahead of the leading Alphas, so I can see that these two are not going to be caught by the end of the race.
Lest they take themselves off, they should be first and second. More in a moment. Estoril, the final race in the Euro STC, round 10 of the championship, the last super racing weekend, the last hurrah for super touring as we know it, the final European race. Matt Neal leads it. He's been in this championship almost all season since his British touring car deal fell apart. He joined us at Silverstone. Glad of him and his Nissan we were. Always good to see an energetic and exciting racer joining the battle. And now for the last two races of the year, James Thompson has come in to try and help Gabriele Tarquini win the championship. Tarquini off the road in the tyres and out of the championship hunt as a result of a clash with Nicola Larini. And here we see it again. There is Larini. Tarquini just forced him into a little error, goes down the inside, a little bit of a touch. Now, on board with Larini, watch his hands on the left-hand side, watch the little map on the steering. David Leslie was just saying in the brakes, I would love to see Larini's steering trace. Now that means the data logging that these cars are jammed with that shows what happened with the steering wheel, and I was about to allude to that before they started the replay here and say, David, it would be great to see that data, but of course we never will, because that would tell us all we need to know about whether Tarquini made a mistake and went off across the nose of Larini by misjudging the length of his car, or as we saw quite clearly there, Larini, when Tarquini's nose was tail was alongside his nose, Larini just giving a little twitch to the right on the steering to tap Tarquini into a spin.
Yes, it's one of those things. It's not the way to finish the championship. It's the wrong way to do it. Everyone said before they started we'd try and do it cleanly. We've just seen it there in the pictures in front of us. It wasn't very clean at the end of the day. Will anyone do anything about it? I've seen this before, and I would think very unlikely, because it's the last race, and because we want to crown someone a champion, then someone will be crowned a champion. That will be Giovanardi. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't make any mistakes. He didn't attack anyone. So he will be crowned champion. But whether Larini has an endorsement on his license or anything else that happens from that, what we looked at on the screen, a definite turn to the right-hand side, just as Tarquini was alongside him. Whether anything happens with that, I think it most unlikely.
Guilty as charged, Mulat, is the simple answer there. We were postulating about, when you see it at first pace, it looks as though Tarquini's come across and just not made enough room for himself. But then when you saw it, and unfortunately for Larini, although the camera was very dark as Matt Neal runs very wide, so too does James Thompson. Half chance, Neal sliding very wide. What a recovery in the Nissan. Thompson's right with him. Oh, that was dramatic stuff now. Matt was there, of course, with wet, muddy slurry all over the rear tyres. That's why when he came back on in the next fast little kinky slid, but David, that would have scrubbed itself back off the tyres. Heart in the mouth moment, though, for both men.
It was. In that first bit, they both went off. You've seen Matt Neal going off first and James following him onto the dirt. And then it was when they came back on next corner, that dirt from the rear made it not the grip they expected at the next corner, and getting very much a bit of a slide on there. So the two of them thinking to themselves, lucky that they're still in this race, still being first and second.
I did say that.
Planted in the barrier somewhere.
I did say unless they took themselves off, they should be first and second. And I was sort of anticipating a rash move by one or the other, not by both at the same time, with no relation to each other. Here's the battle for third, incidentally. There has been some, not attrition, but passing of the slower runners by the front-running men. Roberto Colciaggio in the Audi is in third, and Fabrizio Giovanardi is now fourth. He's got ahead of Johansson, the Swede, in the Audi, who's fifth. Marcus Gustafsson, Tobias Johansson is fifth, but Nicola Larini, championship over, I'm afraid. He's in sixth place, hasn't got past the Audi, and now that Giovanardi has shown one way for an Alfa to get past, I guarantee that that one will be blocked to Larini. Johansson will not go for that a second time. So Larini, who needed to win and had Giovanardi drop well down the order, is not going to win this championship. It will be going to... I'm not going to say that to Giovanardi, because he may not finish yet, as we see a Nissan. Is that Gustafsson? Being pulled out of the way. I think
Swedish cars, I'm not sure
I think it's probably Marcus Gustafsson being pulled out of the way, because he was quite well up and isn't any more. And the other one, the 18 car, is in the pits, or another one of the 18 car of Sandro Sardelli is in the pits. So luckily, David, he tied up, according to your arithmetic, which I do trust, the championship for the amateurs in the previous race. because they seem to be rocking it backwards and forwards, and that suggests a drivetrain problem to me, to you.
It does. It suggests something wrong with the gearbox. But just to put your mind at rest, it wasn't actually my mathematics. It was the mathematics of the championship officials.
I have to say, I do not question your mathematics at all. I question mine intimately, and anybody who's ever heard me do it on air and then immediately see the proof wrong will question it as well. Larini now does go past Johansson for 5th place behind Giovanardi, but still a little further back, and well, the kilts are flying as the team try and push Sardelli's car to, I'm assuming, to get it going. They're all sort of dropping off the back there as they get bored with pushing and rather run out of puff. It's all those orange wigs under the tam o' shanters, I'm sure. Can't be doing them much good. Neil and Thompson leading, and in 3rd place, an Italian driving an Audi. Now, I must just read out this Love Your Racing Weekends, persist in pronouncing Colciago's name with an I before the O. Any of his Italian brethren last go, as in go racing, so Colciago. Yeah, that's what we say. Anyway, so it's Roberto Colciago in 3rd place. Thank you very much, Lars Holst, Germany, by way of Denmark and the USA. And standing currently in Pedant's Corner as Matt Neal leads from James Thompson. No mispronunciations there, I hope. Fabrizio Giovanardi 4th, Nicola Larini 5th, Johansson in 6th place, and in 7th place in car number 3 is Ivan Muller, who after this, I should think, will be reasonably well up on certain people's shopping lists if they're looking to run a team in this championship next year, seeing as he's a fairly astute touring car driver and has proved that he can not only mix it with the best in France, the best in Britain, but also now with the best in the rest of Europe.
Yes, he's been around for a little while now driving touring cars, and he's always been very good. He's always been at the front, as you said, originally with Audi before he moved to Britain. Just completed a number of seasons. Oh, Thompson trying very hard on the outside there.
Certainly is.
I've made that mistake before. You wouldn't have thought he'd make it yet again. But going back to Ivan Muller, he's been very good. He's done a good couple of seasons with Vauxhall, finishing 2nd to his teammate this year in the British Touring Car Championship. And with his experience of ice racing, yeah, he is someone that any number of people would be very happy to call on to say, please can you come and help sort my car and drive it for the season.
Of course, they've got to wriggle him out of a Vauxhall contract first, and that's not the easiest thing. Let's have all right, okay, they don't, all right, I know. We'll carry on and have a look at James Thompson again. As you say, David, really these two drivers are holding nothing back, because the chance to win the last race of the Super Touring era, never mind the last Super Racing Weekend race or the last race of this season. Well, for Matt Neal, it's been a bit of a barren year, hasn't it? He's had flashes of front-running brilliance, but he's had more problems than he's had luck here. And to win this final race, I think, would be a fitting end to a year of support for this championship that he joined, as I said, at Silverstone. And Giovanardi still behind Colciago. Right, so it's the go bit, that's not too bad, I've got that. It's not Colciago, it's Colciago, but is it Colciago or Colciago? Is it hard C or a soft C? Don't know. Sardelli leaves the pits again as I ramble, as David sits there shaking his head. And Fabrizio Giovanardi. Now, David, I said earlier on that my opinion of Tarquini had been that basically he had to go for every half chance he was offered. As a driver, is that how you read how he should have run his race as well?
Without doubt, he had no option. The only way he could win this championship was to win this race. He had his two teammates right up front, was going to help him try and do that should he get through to the front. And that's what he was trying to do. He was trying along with the Alphas, they were in front of him, and he was overtaking them on the way through. And he had no option but to put everything into it. It was a win-win situation. It either worked or it didn't work. But, oh dear, we can see Giovanardi has a problem here. And he slips right round the outside of that.
Or has he just let Nicola Larini in front, knowing that he can't get past the Audi, but Nicola Larini can't beat him in the championship the way Giovanardi is now, and he might want to let Nicola have a chance of getting on the podium, maybe as a kind of teammatey thing, or did he just balls it up?
I think he's probably just made a mess of it, to be perfectly honest. I cannot see teammates doing that to each other at any time, even when you know you've got a championship.
We see a good Scot will do that. He'll always wade through a teammate who's helped him out in the past and let him win a race if he's been asked to nicely, and if it's an agreement between them. But I don't suppose And this is quite some sign of how competitive this championship has been, actually. The last race of 20, and there is no team orders between the two Alfa drivers because they can both win it, and so can a third driver from another manufacturer. That's quite a competitive championship. 20 races, and it's still up for grabs into the final race.
It is. The season has got better and better as the season's gone along. It's just got so many more cars entered into it. As we said earlier, some 25 cars in this race at the start of this race. So a fantastic end to what has been quite a long and very successful era for super touring cars as we know them.
Now, I believe the drivers are on the last lap, but we haven't seen the graphic now. We have completed 11 with just 0.4 of a second between Neil and Thompson, first and second, and there's not 0.4 of a car length between them there under braking, as Matt Neal locked up heavily right in front of James Thompson. Still third place is Roberto Colciago in his Audi, and I think he will stay there despite the attempts of Larini, Muller and Giovanardi to unsettle him. Sardelli's Nissan still chuntering round. He's in the back of the shot there, but the Nissan that we are watching is that of Matt Neal. His Dynamics team have run this car in the British Championship, and now here in this European Series for the final hurrah of Super Tourists. And I'm going to say it because it is an interesting fact that I find utterly remarkable, even though the Nissan people go, no, don't say that. That car that Matt Neal is just about to win the last ever Super Touring race with, Touchwood, is 5 seasons old. Or it was at Silverstone, so it's now at the end of its 5th season. And that is not bad at all. It shows you that a competitive Super Tourer, well looked after, can stay a competitive Super Tourer against the best of new machinery. And even James Thompson's car in its design, the Accord, well, certainly built for the beginning of last season, but probably design goes back another couple of years beyond that. But it is out of the final corner and onto the straight for Matt Neal, who will win this last Super Touring international race ever from James Thompson. Great Britain first and second, and Matt with the BRDC badge on the windscreen brings a little glow to David Leslie's heart as well. But for Monica Simpson, for the Nord Auto team, and among them particularly, of course, for Fabrizio Giovanardi, who crosses the line in 5th place, Ivan Muller having backed off to let him through again. It is championship job well done. And I am very impressed indeed with Mrs. Sips, because she still has fingernails, God bless her. And I have to say, the other guys on the pit wall there in race 1 didn't have any fingernails left. And she says, 2001 champion, but that's 2 championships back-to-back they've won with Fabrizio Giovanardi in the Euro Series. And do I think rightly that Larini is 2nd place in the points as well now after that? Yes. I think he very definitely is. So 1st and 2nd here. And last year the champion, of course, Fabrizio Giovanardi, beating out Peter Cox of Honda at the last race in, it must be said, considerably worse conditions than these in the back of Beyond. So, dramatic last weekend for the Super Tours, dramatic last race, and Giovanardi, who all year has been saying, why is everybody calling me the former champion? Why is everybody talking about Larini? Why is everybody talking about Tarquini? I'm the points leader, I'm the guy who's winning races. Finally can turn around and show, well, gentlemen, that he is at least one finger to everybody to show that he is the #1. Matt Neal, the winner then by the tiniest of margins from James Thompson, and some entertainment they put on for the crowd at the front of the field. Colciago holding off the Alphas, who finished 4th, 5th and 6th. Larini 2nd in points, and a disappointment indeed for him at the beginning of the year and right up to the final race. No team orders to hold him back, but in the end, all the hard work of Giovanardi and a couple of unfortunate problems for Larini and 3 no scores for Tarquini is what decided the championship for Giovanardi. Further down we can see the finishing order with, oh dear, way off the top 20, Sandro Sardelli, who is our amateur class, I know he's 17th, our amateur class champion, 3 laps down after that pit stop where the car, for some reason, seems to refuse to work very much. He's going round there very slowly indeed. There is Sardelli, and Matt Neal alongside him, having won the race, and Sardelli, like Giovanardi, a race later, having won the championship he has been chasing all year. And the team will be very, very happy with that. Senor Sardelli was a diamond in the rough, I think it's fair to say, at the beginning of the year, and they really have worked with him, and he's been really, they've been so impressed with the way he's calmed down and learned and applied himself and turned into really quite a mature young driver.
Yes, he's progressed as the season's gone along, as you said. We weren't very sure at the very beginning of the year. He knew nothing about touring cars at all. He came from single-seaters, and he came in a little bit rough at the beginning, but has progressed as the season's gone along. He won his championship in the last race, and here we see the winner of the championship in this race, Fabrizio Giovanardi, holding on to that European Championship he won last year.
Now, by phonetics, I've just been told that it's cold char go. So it's a silent I, cold char go. In third place, Thompson second, Neil first, but as we said, yes, Fabrizio Giovanardi, and a very happy, relieved, anxious, nervous, frustrated at various different points, but ultimately delighted, relieved and successful Nord Auto team, the 2001 European Super Touring champions. Well, less jubilation and more intense relief sinking through his boots, I think.
Fabrizio, that's 2 years on the trot that you're the European touring car champion. How do you feel now?
What do you feel? I'm feeling really enjoying me and for all the team, because I think we're really hard championship. The Honda was fantastic. I won a lot of races, but it was important to finish all the race. And today was difficult because for me to start in the back with Gabriele was hard to think.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
Well, he spent the last decade racing in touring cars. Giovanardi, a Formula 3, Formula 3000 driver before that, and has raced for Peugeot in Italy for 5 years, and then since 1995 he's been a Nord Auto Alfa Romeo stalwart, and as we said, last year the European Super Touring Championship winner, and this year likewise the winner. So a very, well, I have to say emotional and I do think relieved Fabrizio Giovanardi. It could not have been a tenser finish to the season for him, for Larini or for Tarquini, and I'm sure Gabriele, well, he was not giving off great vibes at the beginning of the race, but he applied himself and he certainly is not a quitter, Gabriele Tarquini. I think he and Larini acquitted themselves superbly right to the very end, taking the battle into a thrilling and involving final race. Well,